Hello, Reapers. It's Silent Signs from I Dream of Indie, and today we are taking a look at Peace, Death 2. This is a puzzle game of sorts where you play a god. Well, more specifically, you actually play a Reaper who is a sorter, which means you are responsible for figuring out who goes to heaven, hell, or purgatory. The premise may sound simple enough, but just because someone looks like Santa Claus or has angel wings does not mean that they are necessarily going to heaven, and just because they look like a murderer doesn't mean they're going to hell. It's weird, but trust me, it all kind of makes sense. In Peace, Death 2, the Reapers have actually formed an independent union, so they no longer have to answer to the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which I quite frankly found hilarious. While the game opens up a little bit and you can visit some pretty cool locations like Death's Agency and Pestilence's Laboratory, the majority of your time is going to be spent working, much like real life, unfortunately. And what happens at work is you are presented with 6 different candidates and are given the responsibility of deciding which of those 6 individuals is going to go to either heaven, hell, or purgatory, depending on the question you are given. The way that you make this determination is by examining both the individual standing before you as well as the symbols tailing them. These symbols, which resemble emojis, can range everywhere from a slice of pizza to a bag of gold to various weaponry. Each workday you're fed a little bit more information about what these symbols mean, the types of individuals that you're going to encounter, and how to sort them. Some of these folks can interact with one another, and others can even pose an immediate threat to you. I really appreciated the fact that this information was fed to me a little piece at a time. Each workday I was learning something new rather than having to memorize a lot at once, so I was able to get comfortable with one concept before a new one was introduced. While there isn't necessarily a time limit on each workday, meaning you don't have to rush to hasty decisions, some of the individuals are a little bit time sensitive. For example, murderers will attack you if you don't sort them in a timely fashion, so you will need to pay attention to who's on the board. And you're also given a few chances on each run, so making a mistake isn't necessarily a matter of life or death. Well, actually, in this particular situation, it is, but you know what I mean. To spice up your day at the office, you can also take on additional challenges, contracts, and catastrophes, which certainly sounds like a typical day at my office. And further, breaking up the monotony of this work week, you get some side stories with little side quests unfolding around you, and even the option to purchase some plants for your apartment. I won't bore you to death with all of the details because then I'd have to sort you and it would be more work for me. But in all seriousness, the gameplay does get a little bit on the monotonous side just because you are doing a lot of the same thing. The little side stories that are going on really do help break things up, and I found myself looking forward to those a lot. And the core puzzle mechanic is a good one. I did try Peace, Death 2, both handheld and docked. Did not run into any issues while docked, but did have a little bit of a game crash while playing in handheld mode. I was in the middle of a workday and I lost my arrow on screen, so I wasn't able to select a victim to sort. At this point, I just had to exit the game and go back in, which didn't really make me lose a whole lot of progress or anything like that, but was worth noting. Peace, Death 2 goes for that pixel art style, but with the fun twist of having a bunch of characters that look suspiciously familiar. Of course, the description of the game claims that they are not intended to be likenesses of anyone you may recognize, but I find that very hard to believe. I personally enjoyed the humor this brought to the game. I did find some of the symbols that are meant to help determine whether someone is meant for heaven or hell to be a little bit hard to read. Some of them I couldn't quite tell what they were supposed to be. For example, there is one symbol which I later found out to be a food item that I was convinced was a clamshell, and I could not figure out why I kept sorting people wrong. So a little bit of clarity or a guide would be very helpful when it comes to some of these symbols. There is a manual of sorts built into the menu of this game, but it only lists really the categories and one symbol next to it, so it's not very helpful if you're looking for one specific item and what it's supposed to be in reference to. My inability to translate these symbols aside, I do think they did a good job with the art style in Peace, Death 2. It was a great way to take subject matter that should be very dark and disturbing and make it comical and light and fun to look at. The soundtrack also does a great job of that. They chose this kind of sound direction that sounds like metal mixed with chip tunes, and it works really well here. You have your synthy bleeps and bloops that are combined with some hard-hitting drums and guitar. The music really just helps marry the themes of doom and gloom and death with the kind of cutesy pixel art style of the game in a nice cohesive way. The concept of Peace, Death 2 certainly isn't a new one. I've played a few games in recent memory that have a similar theme of sorting people in the afterlife, but it is a good way to kill a few hours, and yes, pun fully intended. I wouldn't want to spend all of eternity playing it, but it's definitely not hell on earth either. So will you be applying to work at the Reapers Union? Let me know in the comments down below. Before I go, I just want to thank our indie warriors, Bill T, Christian Cruz, Kevilo, Mitchell Hall, Chris Jackson, Nathan Moore, Adriana Amato, CJR, C Coil, Skeptism, Haley, Julian Colbus, Jen Rose, Jesse, CPM, Bunny, JRS8, Raylin, Marky Mint, Dave Harp, Peekaboo, Lex Noyle, and Eric. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for watching this video. If you haven't already, don't forget you can subscribe down below so you don't miss any reviews or previews, and check out the description box if you'd like to see how to become an indie warrior yourself. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.